Hey, welcome to another one of those annoying what are we doing videos. I'm working on the John Deere Global Universal faceplates here, and we kind of don't see these for a year or two, and then all of a sudden they'll pop back up and we'll do a dozen of them in a year. This seems to be our on year for them. Now, I've been buying these kits from other vendors and then modifying them. Now, the problem that we end up with these John Deere Globals is that the dealers will say there's only one or two versions of them, a version 1 and a version 2, and they're all the same, blah, blah, blah. That's a complete lie. These things are very, very random depending on the manufacturer and the year group that they were made. Even these kits, when I order them, I specify for John Deere Class 1, John Deere Class 2, and we still end up, as you can see, I had to cut these lower ears off, and you can see this mark here. That was actually, this outside edge was over there. I had to move these out almost 1.25 inches each in order for them to reach where the photos from the client are. Same with the hole size. This one has a 1-inch bar going through it for a 1-inch hole, and this one over here is a 1.25. Now keep in mind, both of these plates actually came from the exact same vendor as supposedly a John Deere Class 1 hitch, and you can see right here that hole is almost 2.5 to the bottom of the hole, 3 3/4 to the top of the hole, and that's a 1.25 hole in there. This one here is 2-inch from the plate, and that's a 1-inch hole in there, and as you can see, the hole isn't even close to center on the piece. Now these are all technically made to manufacturer specs of some sort. So even though these are both considered a Class 1 hitch, they're nowhere near each other. And the width on the top of this one is 42.5 to the outside of the hook, and 39 7/8 to the inside of the hook, with those pieces being almost 1.5 inches thick. This one over here is 42 to the outside and 39 and what do we got, 3/8 to the inside, and these things are only like 1.125 1.25 thick. They're metric of some sort. Obviously, the reason I never used this plate on a customer unit is when it came in, the quality of this plate is so low. You know, if the quality of the parts on this had been usable, I would have just moved the parts in order to have to use this on a client piece. But this was such low quality, I did not ever feel comfortable using it on a customer unit, so I just kept it around for a measurement template. Unfortunately, because I don't have a laser cutter or a plasma cutter to make these parts in-house, I do sometimes have to buy some of this stuff and then modify it to fit my needs. But anyways, when we get into the lower ear width here, we're looking at 31 to the outside and 29.5 to the inside, and then over here we're at 30 7/8 and 28 7/8. So once again, this plate came in fairly close on the width of those bottoms to what I ended up moving this one to. Probably close enough to where they would function, but I had to move this out to that dimension for this client unit. So the widths on these things come in all over the place. Now, measuring these widths can be somewhat complicated. I'm going to pass the phone off. The hardest one to get is the measurements from your top bar to your bottom pin. That's easiest to measure on your machine. So if you check your top bar by measuring the end of the bar, your bar on the top of there should be about 1.5 inches diameter. As long as that's 1.5 inches diameter, then on the faceplate of your machine, you can measure from the bottom of that to the top of your latch pin, your movable pin. So we put our tape measure in there and measure to the top of that pin. On this particular one, that is 10 3/4, which means if we were to actually look at that by adding the 1.5 inches to it, it's 12 1/4 to the top of that pin. And the reason we go top of the pin to top of the pin, or bottom of this pin to top of that pin, is those are very easy measurements for a client to get in the field with a regular tape measure. Trying to eyeball center to center, which would be what your blueprint dimension would be center of this one to center of that one, can be difficult to do in the field. So we go from the bottom of this bar to the top of that pin, and that gives me an exact measurement. Now the problem we run into, like I say, this one is 12 1/4 from the top of your faceplate to the top of this pin. I've seen them at 12 1/4, 12 3/8, 12 3/4, 13 1/4, 13 1/2, and 14 7/8. So the distance from this to that is all over the place, depending on what machine. New Holland, John Deere, Case, the old Cat, they're all over the place. And year group of the machine, even two 5000 series John Deeres, one being from, let's say, 2004 and one from 2013, supposedly have the same loader, the same part numbers, blah, blah, blah. They don't. It doesn't come in the same. The dealers will say, well, if you're buying from a manufacturer and they don't know what faceplate is on our machine, then you shouldn't be buying from them. Well, the dealers don't know either. They're really just taking a shot in the dark and hoping the stuff fits, as best as I can tell. Because I've been doing this for 22 years, and out of probably 30 of these faceplates that I have built, 3 have been exactly the same dimensions. And by me taking the dimension from the client and building to their size, out of those 30, I've had 1 that didn't fit because either the dimensions were written down wrong or there was some variance somewhere. So I've got 29 out of 30 that fit well when I do it by dimension, as long as I have good dimensions. So those good dimensions, we take the tape measure across the top of your hooks from outside to outside, and on this one that's 42 1/2. And then we go inside to inside, and on this one that's 39 7/8. Then we do the same on the bottom. The outside to outside is 31 on this one, and the inside to inside is 29 1/2. Then we get the thickness of these. So watch your tape measure. If the end of your tape measure is worn, you may want to go from like 5 or 6 or something so that you get an accurate measurement. This one is 3/4 of an inch thick on the bottom ears and 1 1/4 thick on the top ears. So at least this one is American measurement rather than metric. Then, like I say, the hard one to get is this inside of the hook from the top of your faceplate to the top of the pin. And that is critical that we get that dimension right, because if that's off by 1/8 of an inch, your pins won't drop in. Now obviously if you've got a 1-inch pin on the bottom and these are 1 1/4 holes, it'll drop in, but it'll be sloppy. If it's the other way around, if you've got a 1 1/8 dowel pin, which I have seen, and we've got a 1-inch hole on here, it's not going to drop in. So then you're going to be sitting there trying to ream out the hole, especially if we're shipping the unit to you where we can't come and help you. So we need to make sure that we know what that bottom hole is. On this one, a 1-inch rod fits through there. But once again, if you just start at a random number where your numbers are crisp, this has a 1 1/8 hole through it. So knowing what that dimension is on that hole is important. And then going from the bottom of your faceplate on your machine to the top of your latch pin, and like I say, this one comes in at 10 1/4, so that puts us, when we were at the 10 3/4, excuse me, so 10 3/4 to there, plus that 1.5 inches gives us our 12 1/4 from the top to the top. So that's the best way to measure them. Unfortunately, like I say, from the top of the faceplate to the top of your latch pin on your machine is the easier way, unless you happen to have a piece of 1.5 inch pipe that you can put across like I have here. Then you can measure to the holes on your unit. But we do need all of those dimensions accurate in order to make sure that the unit fits. Now, like I say, obviously I could bore this hole out to be 1.5-inch hole and it'll fit almost anything then, but the unit is going to be sloppy on your machine and eventually that would cause damage to your faceplate. So I don't want to do that. I'd rather have good dimensions. So thank you for watching. Sorry for being a little long-winded. This has been a very frustrating problem that I've run across, and it just happens. Right now I've got 3 or 4 clients that I'm going around with trying to get the proper measurements from. So I figured I'd shoot a good video of it. Thank you for watching. We're Minnesota Implement. Feel free to check out my other videos online.